Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to another video. I'm Ryan Beach, and in today's video we're going to be going over a routine that I want to share with you that I think would be helpful for people who are looking to ingrain healthy habits into their playing, and I'm going to just talk about what the exercises are, what I would be focused on, and how I would implement them into the Gold Method app. If you don't want to use the app, that's totally fine, but I've gotten a lot of feedback from people who have told me that having this kind of structure with the Gold Method app, that it just says you do this exercise, this tempo, this many times, has made it that much easier to get into their practice sessions and get a lot out of it. If you'd like any recordings of this routine, you can check that out on the Gold Method app itself. There will be a link on the home page where you can check that out. So as you're using the Gold Method to practice this routine, you can also have the recordings of me so that you can track your progress throughout the month. And finally, before we get started with the actual routine building, if you do this routine, I would love to hear back from you how it went, things that you might change. I'm always looking to learn from others about how I can better serve you and how I can make better and better routines. So please let me know if you do this routine. To get started, we're gonna go over the 6 skill categories of this routine. First, we're gonna have long tones or first attacks. Next, we're gonna have flexibility. Then we'll move on to finger dexterity and then articulation. The 5th skill category will be multiple tonguing. And finally, we will finish out the skill categories with etudes. We're gonna start with long tones and first attacks for 2 reasons. The first is that long tones are a great way to set up a foundation that we'll be able to build upon for the rest of the routine. And number 2, it's just a pretty low impact way to transition from our warm-up into our actual routine itself. For our long tone work, we're gonna set up the exercise like this. You will hold a long tone note for 8 counts, and then you will rest for 8 counts. You're gonna start on the second line G and work your way down to low F sharp, and then you'll go back to that second line G and work your way up as high as is comfortable. When I'm doing long tones in my own routine, I'm mostly focused on trying to keep the air on my lips when I breathe in and on my lips when I breathe out. I want it to be nice and forward, which helps with the immediacy and the consistency of my articulation in my long tones. When you're entering this exercise into the Gold Method app, you'd type in long tones, parentheses forte, you'd put the goal tempo at 108 and the weekly repetitions at 3. The next exercise, you'd put long tones, but parentheses piano. Goal tempo is gonna be 108 as well, and weekly repetitions will be 3. In addition to the long tone exercises that we're doing, we're also going to set up some exercises in our routine that are going to help us work on just the consistency of the first attack itself. The way I generally set these up is to have a metronome going, and you're gonna play 1 quarter note and then rest for 3 beats, play 1 quarter note, rest for 3 beats, and so on. You'll start on the lowest note of the arpeggio, let's say a G. So you'll play a G quarter note, rest for 3 beats, play a B quarter note, rest for 3 beats, D, rest for 3 beats, and so on until you go all the way up the arpeggio and all the way back down. What you're trying to do with this exercise is have the same quality of articulation and the same quality of follow through. You just don't have the whole entire 8 beats that you had in long tones to center. You gotta do it much more quickly. When you enter this into the Gold Method app, you're gonna write arpeggios, parentheses G-A-B, goal tempo 80, weekly repetitions 3. What this means is that you're only going to play G, A, and B major arpeggios, and then you're gonna type in arpeggios, parentheses F sharp, A flat, B flat, C, goal tempo 80, weekly repetitions 3. This means that on this day when it shows up, you'll play only F sharp, A flat, B flat, and C major arpeggios. What this means is that over the course of 2 different days, you're gonna cover all of your arpeggios rather than playing them all on the same day. If you need any additional information, I made a video specifically on first attacks, which I will link in the description, and you can check that out. Moving on to our second skill category, flexibility is next in the routine because we could almost think of them as moving long tones. What we have already established is healthy production in terms of release and stability of sound in the long tones. We're gonna keep doing that, but now we're gonna add a layer of difficulty, which is just changing notes. The first two exercises for flexibility that we're going to include in this routine is violin page 6 and violin page 9. When working on these exercises, your focus should be on two things. One, you want to make sure that your airstream is absolutely consistent. Sometimes right before we change notes, we might lessen up on the airstream and try to manipulate things. Rather, we want to blow straight through everything. Our airstream cannot stop. And the other thing we need to make sure happens is that we're blowing from the center of one note to the center of the next note. We don't want some notes to be sharp or some notes to be flat or things to sound uneven. We're trying to establish evenness and consistency of airflow as the main goal of what we're doing with these exercises. Now, some people might look at these exercises and think this is way too basic, I'm better than this, but we want to make sure we're doing it right. Yes, the notes are easy, but to be able to master these exercises takes some very specific work, and that's what we're going to try to implement through this routine. When you're entering these violin exercises into the Gold Method app, you're going to look at Skill 2, Exercise 1, and type in violin page 6. The goal tempo will be 90, and the weekly repetitions will be 3. You're going to move on to Skill 2, Exercise 2, and that's going to be violin page 9. The goal tempo is going to be 90, and your weekly repetitions will be 3. The next two violin exercises we're going to include in this routine are violin page 12 and violin page 15. These exercises are going to challenge our ability to keep our airstream forward, keep it intense, and be able to manage the notes that are moving around much more quickly while trying to maintain being in the center of the pitch and just everything that comes with that. When you're entering these exercises into the Gold Method app, you want to type in under Skill 2, Exercise 3, violin page 12. The goal tempo is going to be 120 and your weekly repetitions are going to be 3. And then under Skill 2, Exercise 4, you're going to type in violin page 15. The goal tempo will also be 120 and the weekly repetitions will be 3. If you need more information on flexibility or my thoughts on it, go ahead and click the link in the description below to find a video I made on flexibility that has a lot more of my thoughts. Hopefully that can help you out. For our third skill category, we are going to cover finger dexterity. This is going to be another extension of what we've done before. So what we were doing with flexibility was these moving long tones. Now we're thinking about long tones, but we're changing the valves. And we're going to try to manage not only can my fingers and my air be coordinated, but can I keep everything centered and can I keep it even? And to do this, we're going to use the Clark studies. For the first and second exercises for this skill category, we're going to use the second Clark study. We're going to do odd numbers every other day and even numbers every other day. To get started, I would recommend just slurring all of the exercises, but as you get more and more comfortable, feel free to add in articulation variations like tonguing all of them, or slurring 2 notes, then tonguing 2 notes, or tonguing 2 notes, then slurring 2 notes, or any other variations you can think of will only add complexity to your ability to manage this kind of flow. To enter this into the Gold Method app, you're going to type Clark second study parentheses odds. The goal tempo is going to be 80 and your weekly repetitions will be 3. And then you'll type in Clark second study parentheses evens. Goal tempo is going to be 80 and the weekly repetitions will be 3. For the third and the fourth exercises in this skill category, we're going to do the same exact thing as before, but we're going to use the third Clark study instead. When entering this information in the Gold Method app, you're going to type in Clark third study parentheses odds, and the goal tempo will be 70 and the weekly repetitions will be 3, and then type in Clark third study parentheses evens. The goal tempo for that will also be 70 and the weekly repetitions will be 3. Moving on to the fourth skill category, we're going to do articulation, and this is just going to be the next extension of what we've done. Now we're going to add articulation as a layer of difficulty and how to manage the same kind of flow we've been establishing the whole way, but not letting our articulation get in the way of it. And to do this, we're going to use 4 very basic Arban exercises to work on it. The first exercise is going to be Arban page 30, number 25. I find this to be a good exercise to just challenge your single tonguing speed. When you're entering it into the Gold Method app, you're going to enter Arban page 30, number 25. 105, and the goal tempo will be 104, and the weekly repetitions will be 6 on this one. The second exercise we're gonna use will be Arban page 32, number 29. I really enjoy doing this exercise. As I've said in previous videos, I just find it to be really great for challenging your consistency of articulation, as well as being really easy to adapt to incorporate different articulation styles. In the Gold Method app, you'd put it under Arban page 32, number 29. The goal tempo will be 108, and the weekly repetitions will be 6. The third exercise for this routine is gonna be Arban page 30, number 24. This arpeggiated exercise is gonna challenge your ability to remain crisp and light with your articulation while managing the many leaps that are present in this exercise. It's also gonna challenge your ability to play in tune with yourself, so that's always a good thing too. When you're entering it into the Gold Method app, you would put it as Arban page 30, number 24. The goal tempo is 96, and the weekly repetitions will be 6. And the fourth and final exercise that we're going to include in this routine is Arban page 36, number 27. This exercise is a bit of a combination of the previous three. It's gonna challenge your single tongue speed, it's gonna challenge your consistency, and it's gonna challenge your ability to maintain accuracy through these wide intervals. When you're entering this into the Gold Method app, enter Arban page 36, number 37. The goal tempo is gonna be 90, and the weekly repetitions will be 6. If you need any more information about articulation and my approach to that, I have a video on articulation, a couple different ones actually, and I'll link those in the description so you can check those out as well. Our fifth skill category is going to be multiple tonguing, and continuing on with this pattern, we're saying now we've incorporated articulation, let's make it a little bit more difficult and add in faster articulation and these different syllables with the K tongue involved. For this multiple tonguing work, you really want to try to keep the K syllable as far forward in your mouth as possible. Just like trying to keep the air forward on your regular articulation, it helps with consistency and immediacy if you can get the K tongue to be forward. And I recommend playing everything pretty long at first. A lot of people will tend to play these exercises short, which when they're slower, it can sound okay, but when you go fast, it really starts to sound choppy. So right from the beginning, we want to establish that we have crisp articulation, but we're also following through with the best and fullest sound that we can play with. The first exercise in the multiple tongue category is going to be Arban page 156, number 6. This is a perfect exercise to work on triple tonguing speed because the notes don't really change that often, so your fingers aren't going to be an issue when you begin to push the speed of your multiple tonguing. You want to enter this into the Gold Method app as Arban page 156, number 6. The goal tempo is going to be 90, and the weekly repetitions will be 6. The next exercise we're going to include will be for double tonguing speed, and that's going to be Arban page 175, number 80. Similar to the previous example for triple tonguing, because the notes don't change very often, your fingers are not going to be a barrier to how fast you can challenge your double tonguing speed. To input this into the Gold Method app, you're going to enter Arban page 175, number 80. The goal tempo is going to be 120, and your weekly repetitions are going to be 6. To challenge our triple tongue coordination between our air, our tongue, and our fingers, we're going to program Arban page 166, number 47. This is a really great exercise to lay a solid foundation for this coordination work before we advance to the rest of the arpeggiated exercises and all the crazy stuff that's beyond that. To include this in the Gold Method app, you're going to type in Arban page 166, number 47. The goal tempo is going to be 80, and your weekly repetitions will be 6. And finally, the last exercise in the multiple tonguing skill category is going to be a double tonguing version of the coordination exercises, and we're going to use Arban page 177, number 88. It's a great exercise to challenge the coordination for our double tonguing, just like the previous triple tonguing exercise. And to include this into the Gold Method app, you'll type in Arban page 177, number 88. The goal tempo is going to be 116, and the weekly repetitions will be 6. As with previous examples, I've made a video on multiple tonguing, and so I will link that below so you can check out my thoughts on multiple tonguing and get some more help if you need it. For the final skill category, as we mentioned all the way back in the beginning, we're going to include an etude into our work to be able to try to consolidate all of these technical aspects of our playing into a musical example. I'm gonna include this etude in the fundamentals program here like we're doing with the rest of it, but if you're someone who enjoys using the etude program for this, feel free to fill it out with that as well. For this particular routine, we're going to choose Saxa etude number 21, and we're gonna break it into 2 halves. So you'll basically end up playing 1 half one day and 1 half the other. Entering this into the Gold Method app fundamentals section is pretty simple. You would just type in under skill 6, exercise 1, Saxa 21, measure 1 to measure 25. The goal tempo is gonna be 94 and the weekly repetitions will be 6. And then under skill 6, exercise 2, you're gonna type in Saxa 21, measure 26 to the end. The goal tempo will be 94 and the weekly repetitions will be 6. So that's the entire routine. Hopefully it makes sense and you can take all this information and input it into the Gold Method app if you want, and you can use that to start working on this and honing your healthy habit development. Before we close out this video, I want to share 3 different things with you. The first is going to be making sure you include deliberate practice techniques into your practice session. By deliberate practice techniques, I mean you're gonna already have slow practice as something that the app will do for you, but you want to include recording as part of your process. Maybe you need to adjust some articulations, or maybe you need to do some visualization. For me, a lot of the deliberate practice actually happens in between different repetitions. And so if you have an Arban exercise that you have assigned 3 repetitions, maybe you play the first one and then you assess how you did. And then in between that, you're singing to yourself or visualizing or maybe isolating a difficult section. And then you'll go and you'll do the second repetition and see, did my plan work? And then you would do that same exact process of deliberate practice and then try it out on your 3rd repetition. As I just mentioned, recording is going to be really beneficial to you as well. I would recommend recording a little bit of everything that you do and listening back right away so you can get feedback on your efforts. Also, maybe recording at the beginning of the process and the end of the process so you can hear objective progress. That can be really motivating to hear and to know that even though maybe it didn't feel like it some days, you actually definitely made progress. The second thing I want to share is that this routine is just a starting point. I made some really calculated decisions based on who I'm making this routine for and how it could benefit them. And I chose the exercises and the tempos and things like that based on that. But if you end up putting these exercises or tempos into the program and it doesn't quite work, feel free to change an exercise or feel free to lower or raise a goal tempo if necessary. There's nothing dogmatic about this. I just wanted to give you all a place that you could start to immediately get a lot out of your practice today. And finally, one of the questions that I get asked all the time is about my warm-up. And so I want to say that my warm-up is generally between 10 and 15 minutes long, and then I get into the routine itself. As I mentioned earlier in the video, I try to start my routine with something pretty low impact, so it's kind of like my warm-up and my routine allied with each other a little bit, and that really helps me sort of continue warming up almost as I'm doing my routine. After I finish my warm-up and the routine, I'll maybe move on to an etude that I'm working on or work on some repertoire for work, but I don't really do much else other than that. I don't want to try to overdo it on one day because I feel really good and then have 2 or 3 days in a row that feel terrible because my lips are swollen. I really try to maintain that on any given day I don't overdo it so that all of my practice days are productive. I've gotten some feedback from people about these routines that right out of the gate on day 1, it can be kind of difficult to get through. So I want to address this by saying, if you feel like you're having trouble getting through the routine and you feel like you're going to get injured, don't do the routine. We shouldn't be practicing to the point of injury. But if you feel like you're practicing, your form is good, so to speak, you're producing sound in a healthy way, and you just feel like maybe I'm a little out of shape, just rest as much as you need to. But hopefully you'll notice over the course of the month that you're doing the routine that you might rest less and less, and you'll actually notice through just continuing to come back to the routine, I'm actually getting more and more in shape, which is a great thing. All right, everyone, that is gonna be all for this video. I appreciate you sticking around all the way to the end here. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me on my contact page of my website. If you need any help with any of the exercises that I've been talking about, you wanna help build a customized routine, or if you wanna take a lesson or anything like that, I am available for those things. I'm gonna link the playlist to all the different fundamental trumpet videos that I've had, so if you wanna check any of those out in relationship to some of the things we've been talking about this video, you can do that. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video.